Is your mic on?
How about now? Jesus, yes. Thank you. All right, shall I repeat, or did everybody hear my welcome? Anyway, here we are, July 25th, 2022, 11:30 a.m. Thank you to those that are listening to our live audio feed. Just a reminder that those that wish to make public comments during the meeting are encouraged to attend in person in the chambers or send comments to the town clerk prior to the meeting. Town Manager Stevens, will you please call the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Paz?
Here.
Vice Mayor DeHassett?
Present.
Mayor Grover?
Here.
Commissioner Pugh?
Here.
And Commissioner Michelak?
Here.
Would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? I would like to modify the agenda and ask that non-agenda public comment be moved to the end of the meeting so that we can go forward with the business at hand, which is why we're having a special meeting, and then everybody can be heard at the end of the meeting. How are we looking?
On me?
Christine? Do we have a consensus?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so we have a consensus. I'll entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? I guess we don't need a vote then. All right, so we will move right on to agenda item number 1, Town Manager Transition Planning. Town Manager Stevens, would you please update us on this item?
Absolutely, Mayor, thank you. As you're aware, I submitted my 60-day resignation to accept a position as Town Manager and Finance Director with the Town of Haverhill. My last day of employment will be Sunday, September 11th. My recommendation for transition planning is to work with the Florida City and County Managers Association Senior Advisors Program on the search for a new town manager. They offer their services for free and will provide professionals to assist the town by developing a time schedule for hiring, reviewing the job description and making any recommendations for changes to it, developing a job advertisement, reviewing applications, and conducting interviews. Once the initial interviews are completed, they will present the top 10 candidates to the commission in order of preference, and then the commission would pick which of those candidates the commission would like to interview and place as finalists for the position. The senior advisors will also work with the town on recommendations regarding the process for an acting or an interim town manager. I've provided information in your meeting packages regarding the senior advisor program, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Before you take that up, I also wanted to formally request that I perform some consulting work for the town of Haverhill in the interim. If I'm granted the permission to perform that work, it won't interfere with any of the duties here. I'll be doing some weekend and night work, and work that won't interfere here. I will definitely still be working my 40-plus hours here, but I'd like to consult with them as well since their current administrator is leaving Friday.
All right. Anything else to add to your?
I just need a
Okay,
consensus
that's where
to
I
move
go.
forward with
That's where we're
consulting
going.
if that's,
All
if
right.
you will allow me
How
to
does
do that.
everybody feel on that? Jeff?
Sure. Yeah.
Any issue with that?
Yes, I'm very well with it.
Pardon me?
I said yes, I'm good with it.
Okay. Good?
It troubles me, but I don't see any way around it. Because every time I call you, particularly now, you say you're overwhelmed, you're too busy. So it's okay, but it's troublesome.
Martin?
Okay.
I'm fine, so I believe we have consensus there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I have a couple minutes of statement here, because this is a big deal for all of us. So, welcome everybody. Most of us in the town of Ocean Ridge are saddened to be losing one of the most hardworking, ethical, and dedicated town managers a municipality could hope to have had. I could go on, but we're here for a different reason, and that's to plan our next step. I'm sure most folks know that Carla, our wonderful town clerk, has left us to begin law school. This has been a goal of hers for at least the last year, and she finally applied and was accepted. I know we could not be happier for her. Which leads me into mentioning some good news for Ocean Ridge. We have hired a town clerk, Kelly Avery. She has an excellent workplace experience record that includes deputy city clerk for the city of West Palm Beach and also a former deputy town clerk for our neighbor Gulfstream. Also know that Kelly is currently finishing up her master's in public administration. So back to the issue at hand. As soon as I heard that Tracy was leaving, I reached out to our local League of Cities representative, Richard Radcliffe, to discuss the possible game plan options that the LOC might recommend. He unequivocally pointed to the FCCMA, Florida City and County Management Association. Professional, objective, they're made up of practicing former public administrators throughout Florida's government. They're nonprofit, so it would not cost us, and their main offices are in Tallahassee. Their whole issue here is to elevate professionalism among the state's 479 cities and counties. They are committed to supporting and promoting council-manager plan as a form of local government that advances the highest ethical and professional standards, providing education, support, information, and regulation to its member, and fostering community awareness of the critical issues of governance. Their board consists of 15 county and city managers from across the state, and their senior advisors consist of 11 professionals who work hand in hand with the municipality they are advising. The services include outlining the ICMA, another acronym, International City Management Association guidelines and process to elected officials, that would be us, determining qualifications, compensation, position requirements, assisting with advertisements, reviewing, recommending candidates based on position standards established by the governing body, that is us again, and basically filtering the candidates down to approximately 10 at the most qualified. Our body then interviews and makes the decision. Our advisor would be Mr. Dan Clayman, who happens to oversee this section of the state. And I personally reached out to him last week to discuss if we might and how we might work together. So I'll give you the quick highlights of his veto. He was magna cum laude, Bachelor of Arts at Bowling Green University. He has his master's from governmental administration at the Wharton Graduate School, University of Pennsylvania, and attended programs for senior executives in state and local government at the Kennedy School at Harvard. His experience, he's held several positions, including the office manager of the city of Dayton, Ohio, Tallahassee for over 20 years, city manager, county manager of Hillsborough County, which is Tampa, for 10 years, and was also Jacksonville's chief administrative officer. He let me know that the association can assist with interim management placement while the major search takes place. He has a strong list of what he refers to as MITs, which means managers in transition, and contacts with retired and consulting town managers. I did ask him what other local municipalities in our population range have they worked with recently. And his guys got back to him and gave him Pahokee, Indiantown. They actually worked with Haverhill's interim town administrator, Monticello, Stark, Bronson, Neptune Beach, and so on. So I did my research too on the group that Tracy suggested. So I will now open the floor for commission discussion. Jeff, want to start with you?
Well, this just gets us where this gets us just to moving forward, and this is just suggesting what, giving us ideas on where to search, because this background search of candidates are not included in the service.
No, they do it all. They do the search, the advertising, everything I just said.
Well, it just says background searches on candidates are not included in the service and should be conducted through qualified individuals and firms.
Tracy, would you?
By the city or county.
Yeah, no, the background checks are always provided by the
Us.
police department here. We do fingerprinting, we do background checks. We always do for
So
every employee.
When do they first start giving us candidates?
As soon as we agree that this is the direction that we would like to go to, they are ready to hit the ground running. And they will do the advertisement, and it's free. Because this is I figured everybody'd like that. This is a nonprofit, and this is for the betterment of government in general. That's why these senior advisors, who are the ones that would work with us, have all these great backgrounds.
Once, product free, and as long as they know the size of our town.
And we put everything together such as we have the job description that everybody's seen. We give that to them, and they will give us comments on anything we might consider adding or taking away to get the best person. They'll do the interviewing, and they basically filter, but we work with them every step of the way.
What's your timeline?
I was told that at the longest, 4 months. It all depends on who shows up when they start advertising. Like if we were advertising in February, everybody up north would probably be piling in because winters are bad. They'd want to come move to this sweet little town, Ocean Ridge. So it's all on who's out there.
All right, so we just need to start this like right now.
ASAP, yes. That's why we're having the special meeting.
Okay. Well, I would have thought we would actually have done this already, frankly.
We have to agree on it.
We have a city manager, she's quitting, she could say, this is what I suggest.
She did.
You just do it.
She did. No, that's what we're doing
That's
today.
just a difference of opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that's today what we're doing.
So, speaking of this, I'm all for it, let's go with it. Start it tomorrow, today, whenever you want. But we have to get it done in
I agree.
a soon amount of time.
Okay, Christine, any input?
First off, I reluctantly accept your resignation. I'm very much in favor of hiring the FCCMA. I would like to see the list of candidates in rapid order for the management and training, the MIT. And if they were to be retained by us, they would be retained on an acting-only basis, not on an interim basis. Acting only, just for edification, means that they cannot be hired for that position in a permanent type situation. And the other thing that I'd like to explore and discuss maybe with council is making a minor change to the job description. I would like to see that a Bachelor of Arts or Science or just a 4-year degree be part of the recommendation and requirements for a town manager going forward. It turns out that actually that is a requirement for our police chief, and since our police chief reports into our town manager, I think that we should have the same similar skill sets necessary. And we need an experienced professional town manager with a 4-year degree.
All right, Steve?
I don't see what a 4-year degree has to do with it. I mean, I don't even think Elon Musk or Zuckerberg graduated college. Yeah, I'm all for this. But I'd have to know. I think the town manager, we have all these towns that are very similar to us in Massachusetts, New York, Long Island, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, that have town managers handling towns like ours that are seaside. So I would want to thrust towards those areas. Who mentioned snow? You did, right? It's cold months, they'll come down. And I think those are the kind of managers we want, that they have experience managing a town in a seaside environment, and they're used to a small, close-knit community. And I just want to make sure that this group can put an emphasis on that area. And I don't know how we communicate that to them.
Okay.
We can? Who, and your point
Yes, you can.
person?
Yeah, you can definitely communicate that with them, and they can even craft something in the advertisement that kind of hones in on that.
Okay. And back to Christine's point, I'm not in agreement with that, but it's up to the commission.
Okay, Martin, input?
Just as a point of order, if we don't accept Tracy's resignation, can we lock her up in jail back there and get a computer set up and,
I'll second.
no, yeah?
No.
Well, then I guess reluctantly I have to accept that too. Sad to see you leave.
Thank you.
For the business at hand, if it takes 4 months to find, or up to 4 months to find a person, one of my thoughts immediately is that whoever is going to be the acting town manager at the time, we today should really put a timeline on this, so that there's a clear direction that we as a commission want to have a new town manager at a point certain. And this is not going to drag out into a long and winding, we need to find somebody else. I would like to have a timeline that is fixed to this process, set with whatever it is that we decide today. And if that is 4 months, then that is 4 months. I'm okay with that. I would like to see an acting town manager. I do not want to see an interim town manager. I think the interim is something that usually tries to slow down the process of finding a permanent position, or then basically morph the the interim town manager into a permanent town manager. So I would like to see it as an acting, bring somebody in, or somebody from our own staff as an acting town manager with a point certain. Bachelor degree, I agree that it would be definitely the right choice to have somebody with a bachelor degree. However, the reason why it's probably not in there is it gives us a choice of also taking somebody else that is perfectly qualified but does not have a bachelor degree. And in this particular case, what I would like to look for is, I would like to look for somebody that does have it. But if we find a candidate that does not have it, I would not necessarily want to say no to that candidate if that candidate is perfectly qualified for the position, checks off all of our boxes, and is basically the perfect fit. Just because of the bachelor, I would not want to take somebody off the table. But preferably, definitely somebody with a bachelor. Thank you.
Okay, let me see what I can say here. The timeline, I'm going to try and answer some of the questions because I had so many conversations with Mr. Clayman. The timeline is something that we tell him. So up to 4 months is what my research has shown me, but we can give him the timeline. So that's something we need to discuss when we give him the information. The BA, I mentioned that as well, and what he said is that he would probably suggest that if he worked with us when he hasn't seen this, but when he worked with us and saw it wasn't there, he said he would probably suggest that, because that's the new and modern approach to hiring administrators. So it's up there for us. Everything ends up being the choice to us. The acting only versus the interim, we can make that discussion, but I mentioned that fact as well for just that reason about somebody coming in and then, because everything's working out, throwing out all the good candidates because somebody's had an actual chance to drive the car there. And what he said to me was, you probably would have your best candidate overall by not narrowing it down to saying only acting, only interim. Just find the best person to keep our ship moving forward. There's retirees that aren't interested, or some of the managers in transition if they wanted to apply with everybody else. So that's just the information he gave me. I'm just going by that. Out of state was something that I think we should look at. A lot of places want to stay only in state, but I say look at out of state, because you don't know what you're going to get and who's got a fabulous position similar to what we like and could be wonderful here. So I'm all for that as well. And like Tracy said, we can hone our requirements. But I think we're here mostly to make the decision, will we put this in the hands of him, and then we can work towards giving the information and deciding amongst ourselves if there's something we want to ask or no. Correct? That's the impression I got for him. He's ready to start and help us. He was very interested. He was reaching out emails and what have you over the weekend to other people he'd worked with. So I need a consensus, or do we need a motion to move forward?
I got a question, actually. How do they advertise or alert the international town management community?
So they'll post on what's called the ICMA, which is the International City Managers Association.
Which extends throughout America?
Yes, it does. Matter of fact, it's international,
Yeah.
so even overseas.
Okay. So, do they have a sheet that explains all that? What I want to make sure is that we hit these pockets on the coast. So I'm trying to
Yep, well,
make sure we concentrate on that, and I don't have a problem with having this group and then throwing some money to them and say, hey, advertise in the Cape Cod Times, whatever vehicles available to pick up some of these small town managers that are out there.
Is that something that we can target? That we, I mean, if we're giving them the timeline and say we want to have this done in 3 months, can we also tell them we would like to look outside of the state, in particular
Well,
those coastal areas?
He said it's our decision, do we want to stay in-state or out? I'm glad to hear everybody's thinking outstate. But I
Definitely.
think we can suggest to him, because he's going to be the one that's knowledgeable in this, using his group for information, that we would like to consider possibly targeting, not saying that nobody else is, you know,
Sure.
you never know who you're going to get,
Sure.
but targeting similar municipalities in demographics, size, and physicality.
Yes.
I heard there's a new town manager coming into Haverhill. Maybe we should try to.
Are you still on that? Leave that girl alone.
So we need the answer to how they, other than the board, the message board they're gonna put this up on, you know, what other vehicles would they use to alert town managers who perhaps don't go to this board every month?
Yeah, they're gonna do ICMA for sure. They'll do Florida League of Cities to get everybody in Florida. We'll do the Palm Beach Post, which is our local, and then any other avenue that they have, and I'm sure they're experienced to
But-
know.
And we
Yeah.
can give suggestions to, like
Right,
you
but if
said.
it's free, you see, then we should tell them, hey, there's $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 available for advertising.
Oh, well, we as a town will pay for advertising.
Okay.
Their services
But I
to
wanna
help
make sure
us
they're aware of that.
are free.
Yeah,
Is
we
However,
can
we
make sure
pay
they're
for
aware.
ads.
We can absolutely make sure that they're aware that
And
we
we
really
want,
want to touch
well, do we have a
outside.
consensus, do we want advertising in these local papers along the coast? And particularly, like the Cape Cod Times does the entire Cape.
Yes, another one. Well, first, what I think we need to do is let's agree, either motion or consensus, that we're going to let the group take on this with, working with us. And he made it very clear, they work with us through the entire process. We don't just say, see you in 4 months with your people. Okay, so all these questions and suggestions and such, we will relay to them. And we will get him to speak to us, even if special meeting, whatever we have to do, we'll get him to come speak to us, to work with us on how to hone down our advertisements, because that's gonna be the number one, right? So are we all in?
Well, I'm not opposed to bringing someone in from out of state. I just want everybody to have their eyes wide open. That's a minimum of another $25,000 to $50,000 in relocation fees, setting somebody up for temporary housing, and a plethora of other things. So it's not just a magic wand.
Right, but a consideration. We're the ones that make the
Yes.
final decision anyway. But if we say we absolutely are interested in looking out of state as well. So do we need a motion or do we need a consensus to move
Madam Mayor,
forward?
if I may,
Please.
one thought to consider is, there's different points that have been thrown out about, looking outside Florida, a timeline, acting versus interim. To try to corral this and not create any potential appearance of a sunshine law violation, sometimes it's helpful to appoint a point person to work directly with the individual from the organization, so that they're not receiving 5 different calls and having to make a decision based on who called them and what they said. So my recommendation would be to, if there's clear priorities that the commission has, lay those out today, and then perhaps direct Tracy to talk with them about, here's the priorities, here's where we want the advertisements targeted, here's what we're looking for, and those type of things. And if we could spend a little time today to lay that out, it will help prevent, I think, them going in 5 different directions and having a clear, here's who we're going to talk to and work through that.
Okay.
So that's just my recommendation, to try to, because
No,
a lot of
that's a good
times,
idea, so we don't have to go back and forth.
right, and a lot of times in these scenarios, I've got to watch out to make sure that they're not running afoul of the sunshine, and they're
Right.
usually well versed in the sunshine, so they know what they can and can't do, but it just makes it easier if there's like one main point of contact.
Would we need to, before we go to, those are what I would call the details, do we need to first agree that we are going to work with the group?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
do we need a motion or a consensus?
Consensus is fine.
I think we're all there, right? Everybody's there?
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll move on to coming up with the points that you can relate to Mr. Clayman, because he's the one that's going to be working with us.
Right.
And,
First would be your timeline.
right, timeline, we see
3 to
4
4
months is the
months, or-
longest, but we'd like it to be, right? You'd have to leave it up to him as he starts to see how many we're getting, and as it starts to dribble out towards the end, okay, done, let's move. but 4 months at the most.
Would we like to put a timeline of even 2 months on it and say, please come back to us with candidate choices by 2 months?
Oh.
And then go, okay, if we don't have enough to make an educated.
Well, we can check in 2 months and just say, what do you think?
Why 2 months?
I don't know.
We only have until September 11th, so, I mean, in a month. We need it as soon as possible, so.
Well, we're still talking
you
interim.
You come up with at least 10 or 12 candidates in the next 2 weeks, bring them over.
Oh, that's not gonna
Because,
happen.
I mean, the timeline thing is, I don't even understand the timeline, because the timeline is, look, we're saying yes, we're saying yes, go do this. And if you have to come up within the next day, a dozen candidates shown to us.
It'll take you 2 weeks to get the
Okay?
advertisements
But
out.
the problem is on the long run,
You'll have to advertise.
there's no timeline, because what happens is you have to pick, we have to pick the best qualified candidate we can. And then we have a point to where, when Tracy's gone, who is the interim person we're going to?
Well, this is the, well, we did dance on that, so here's the consideration would be our priority, is our interim acting. So we have somebody that's gonna work with our new town clerk while the search is going on. Wouldn't you think the priority would be to, because he's already got, see if I even have the information he gave me, he'd already given me that manager in training, that manager in transition, did everybody get that? Yeah. What do we have? 2 pages worth of people that are in transition. This doesn't even include people he would know that are retired. We had that discussion, I believe, the city's luncheon, retired town managers, to just keep us moving forward. And then he's got that 3-4 months to find us the best candidate. I'm in no rush to rush the process. We want to give the advertisements out their time to make their move.
I agree. I don't want to rush it either. At the same time, if we do have candidates that are qualified, and Christie, do we need, when we advertise this position, because it's a regular position that's being advertised, is there certain timelines by law that we have to follow?
No, you would just need to advertise for who you're going to hire. Now, if you're considering doing an acting where they're just coming in to help out while you're going through the search, that's a different story. But if who you're going to hire, it needs to be advertised, but there's no timeframes that I'm aware of that it has to be advertised for a certain amount of time.
Good.
I mean, normally 30 days you want to have it out there. That doesn't mean as the applications come trickling in that they couldn't start, sorting through them.
The process, yeah, right away, exactly, no need to wait for everything to come. But on the point of, as Jeff made the concept of our interim acting is probably our priority. So that one, because he already has a list, and between all the other senior advisors who know of, as we discussed, possibly retired consultants or what have you, that's not the 4-month thing. That's the, let's get it done tomorrow as soon as possible, find the best person. And while that's happening is when he's advertising, interviewing as they come in, right? Does that sound logical?
That's right on the money.
Yeah, I think what we're not saying, we will, even if we have the best candidate tomorrow, we will wait for 4 months.
No,
That's
that's
not-
at the
It-
longest.
You're
yeah.
just saying, let's put a line in the sand. We
Right.
can always move that line, but let's put a line in the sand so it doesn't drag on and on and on and on.
That's my point.
Yeah, because that was just in our discussion when I said how long, and my research showed me how long can it take. That's the longest 4 months, so I've thrown out worst case scenario. Best case scenario, 2.5, 3 max.
But as Christine just said, it's a movable line.
Right.
In other words, if we're not satisfied.
Exactly.
So I understand Jeff's point, and I understand the 4-month point. It's kind of moot to me.
Yeah, it is, it
Beca-
really is. It's
yeah.
by who comes.
Yeah.
So we probably, if we're going to make these decisions about what we need to do, shall we agree that the priority would be finding an interim while he's preparing to advertise for the long term? Acting.
Yes. I would agree
Right?
on an acting person being the priority right now. Of the 11 members in transition profiles we were
Somebody.
given, there's 5 that are local.
Right, I saw that.
So that gets to the overlap question, is my thing on yet. We have to have this individual in here overlapped with Tracy for X amount of weeks, whatever.
Yes, so she can work her through, exactly right. Train her so that she's
Or
going to
him.
be able to train the next
Him.
one.
I need to train Kelly, yeah.
So Kelly
So-
would become, so we are hiring Kelly as a town
Clerk.
clerk,
I think-
and then she would automatically become acting town manager?
No,
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 no.
no, 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 no.
I was
The,
gonna
the,
say
the
that
outsider that's
didn't-
gonna come in, but my point
Okay,
is,
yeah, thank you.
that person needs to come in, you're leaving in what, 7 weeks?
Yeah.
So we should have that person as soon as
Absolutely.
possible in here,
Yes.
overlapping.
Correct.
Your space problem, where you're gonna sit everyone,
Doesn't matter.
you'll
Yeah.
take care
We'll
of.
take
We'll
care of
work
it.
that out.
And then the town clerk, I
Gets
would think
trained
that's
also
your
by her.
responsibility.
Yeah,
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and that's why I said I'm gonna onboard Kelly next week and train her, and then if we could have an acting town manager. kind of-
Within a couple weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, within
we'd
a
be
couple
looking
weeks
golden.
in that process, that would be great.
Yeah, that's how I'd like to see it, right? I can't see that it shouldn't, like you said, we've got a group of them right here, not to mention all the people that Daniel can reach out to that might be interested in doing this for the months it takes to get going. So is that
Okay.
our priority?
It's our priority, and should we put a date against it? I'm back to where Martin started. Within 2 weeks,
we need to find the acting,
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Where's
2
your-
weeks sound good to you?
you're looking at
find
it,
an acting.
you're
Okay.
looking at it, cause.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
Okay, so within 2 weeks, we want our acting town manager. Everybody,
Yes.
everybody online there? Jeff, good for you?
Yeah, I'm looking at these member in transition profiles.
Did
there's
you-
a couple here that-
Former manager of Boynton Beach.
I know, believe me, I brought her up, but we're gonna let him do this. So, within 2 weeks, that would be one of our that's our priority. What else do we want?
Do we need to come back to this? Do we need to sit again and appoint that person?
Yes,
Yes, because he will,
So-
he
so-
will bring in our possibilities that he has honed into thinking, which will only be a couple of them, because he knows we need to move forward. He'll bring in our possibilities, and yes, we'll make that decision.
Where's Janie? Loxahatchee Groves?
Yes,
Retired, that's where he is.
No, but look at this guy, William F. Underwood.
I know, I saw,
Yeah.
I went through them all. So I think that, I'm hoping, maybe,
Our town commission meeting
I'm
is the
wishing on a
first,
star,
right?
but I'm thinking finding an
a week.
acting town manager is not going to be horrendous.
right.
And if everything works perfectly, then let's go back to what our priorities are gonna be for his search. We wanna make sure everybody's agreed on the search out of state.
Well, hold on a second,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, one question I have is so that we can give clear direction to them, is there consensus that the interim person will be an acting person? Because they're gonna probably need to inform whomever
Right.
that if you're coming in, it is only acting and you're off the candidate list, so that it's clear direction to whoever's coming in to help out in the interim period.
Where do you stand on that one, Jeff?
Well, I'm looking at, like I said, it's member in transition profiles, there's 10 people right here we could pick from.
Right, but
I've got a
as
couple of them
acting
already on
versus
there,
interim,
let's see.
but
Yeah.
acting
But I
versus
mean,
interim.
Right,
But if
exactly.
the
Tracy.
acting person wants to actually be a tenured person, they wanna actually to say, hey, look,
That's the
I
question.
wanna
Yeah.
throw my
So,
application in there as well.
but does that lock us into that person cannot be town manager?
Well,
we call
that's
it
what-
acting?
that's what I'm
That's our
asking.
decision.
Well,
Decision.
What
but
do you
hang on,
guys, what's
it's
your
the
preference?
definition of
Okay,
acting
wait,
versus
Tracy.
interim.
It's
So-
just a difference of how you
Right,
want
but if we say acting, does that ban that person from becoming town manager?
You could call it whatever you
Yes.
want, I think. It's just going forward, laying out your process so it's clear, is that person you're bringing in
Capable.
acting and also a potential candidate, or are they just here for a period of time and once you select your candidate, they're gone?
But if a candidate sees the word acting, one of these in transition people sees the word acting, that's a signal to them that I'm only gonna have a job for
Well,
3 or
he'd be
4 months.
speaking
We
and
just need to
reaching out to them.
clarify. We just need to clarify so that the folks who start talking to them know this is what they want
What
to
we
do as their
want.
process.
Right, but we don't want to limit any of
Well,
these
that's
candidates.
the question here,
So
Tracy.
if acting
Okay.
causes them to think it's limited, then we shouldn't use
Right,
the word.
we understand. Tracy,
Yeah.
do you have something you wanna say?
Yeah, and I just want to let you know that the managers in transition, they are looking for
Right.
permanent jobs.
Right.
I would
So
presume
this comes down to us, do we want somebody who we do not, and that was the question I asked to Daniel. I said, what do you think about just looking for a temporary who would not then throw into the pile? And the more I thought about it, I kind of agree with the concept of come in as the temporary, but if you're interested in the job, you put your name in the interview thing there too.
So we shouldn't use the word acting.
Oh, the terminology will come from him. We'll let the professional tell us how to say it. So, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, any
Okay.
candidate out there, whether
Okay.
they're on this list
Well,
or
that's
not
the
on this
question.
list, yeah, sure.
Right, that's our question. Martin? You did all that.
I'm full on board.
Okay.
I see everything that's being pointed out. It's all valid points. I don't want to limit myself.
Okay.
At the same time, I don't want to have this dragging out.
Okay.
That's my point to this.
All right, so our priority is our interim, who can apply, throw their name in the hat if they need to. Within 2 weeks, we'd like to see somebody. And going for our forward, permanent one, we are looking out of state, right? We've all decided we want,
And in Florida.
right, but out of state as well. Okay, what else do we need to tell Tracy to forward push to him? Hold on.
We'll take
We're gonna do
Right,
it.
hold on. Well, he's got the whole list. What else did we talk about?
Before you bang the gavel on that, is there, one of the things we haven't discussed, is there anybody internally that could be acting manager for a limited amount of time while we're doing this search?
She left.
Well, bottom line is, if, I spoke with Chief, if he had to, he could, but that's a lot of work. He's already doing a lot of work, so therefore, I think getting a interim, acting, whatever we're going to call it, is really the better direction to go personally.
And
So it's
Madam
up to-
Mayor, with the chief of police, the problem is that's considered an office, so is your town manager, so he would have to just serve in one position.
Right.
He couldn't serve in both positions
Yeah.
at the same time, so just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah,
So then you'd need an acting chief while he's the acting manager.
I think
so
out of
that's-
this crew and the group he knows, that we should be able to come up with somebody that will take this on.
Okay.
So, but good idea, because I asked too. So, back to giving Tracy some direction when you speak with Mr. Clayman about our wants, right? That's what you were suggesting, is we, instead of gather them through the next month, come up with a nice little list now. Or what we can always do is go home and think about it and send you things, and you could hone them. No, you said no way, huh?
What I would
What
suggest
do you
is
think?
August 1st, we could also add something to the agenda.
All right, good idea.
So that then we could continue to have these discussions publicly, so that there's clear direction as a body moving through this process.
Okay. Is there anything else that we discussed that you heard us discuss? I can't remember.
Well, I
We
just
wanted
want to follow up on what you just said. What we don't want is to have 5 commissioners
Right.
giving me their opinions, because we can't do it that way. It has to be a
Counterintuitive.
decision as a body,
Okay.
so,
Was there
make your
something else
decisions
that we
while you're
brought up?
here.
Do y'all remember?
Don't.
I just wanted to circle back with
To which
needing
one?
a degree.
Right,
I feel pretty strongly about that one.
I do too.
So in the current job description, I'm assuming that you're saying then, instead of having an or, would that be an and?
Because it's experience, education and.
Because right now, the way the minimum training experience is a bachelor's degree in public administration, business administration, or related field, or a minimum of 10 years progressive responsible, blah, blah, blah. So instead of an or there, you would prefer an and?
Correct.
Where are you? Under minimum
I'm
training
sorry.
experience?
I'm sorry,
Yes,
yes.
That would be excessive, though.
So, do you think, Tracy, that I'm adding both? Now, I'm all for the BA. Do you think BA plus minimum of 10 years is overkill, and we might lose some possible 6, 7-year good experience people? What do y'all think about that? I just don't want to cut anybody out. I'm all for the degree, but is that too, what do you think?
I'm gonna let you all
Yeah, I
decide.
knew you would. I knew you would.
I'd really like to have the gentleman that you've been speaking with, his opinion
Well, that's
on
what
it.
he said. He told me, once it goes into his hands, he's going to look at this and make suggestions if any of this should be amended.
If the guy is a successful town manager in Jupiter, let's say, and he doesn't have a BA, why would we disqualify him from being town manager here?
I think
It's
things,
crazy.
things have moved, things have changed, and BA in public administration, how are you gonna beat that? That's just a plus for qualification.
All right, so I'm negative on that. So
Uh-huh.
why don't we just make a decision here? Right?
I'm negative on that.
Are you negative?
Should we, how about that we wait and hear what Mr. Clayman says? When he takes a look at this and looks for what he thinks would be important.
I would like to hear that too, because I agree with Stephen and Jeff that we really should not necessarily limit us and basically put a rock on our feet.
Right.
What we need to do is we need to have the option open. If we have a candidate that comes in and has phenomenal qualifications and has everything that checks off every single box, but is missing a BA,
Right, but that's what we currently have.
that, I
So do you
know,
think we should look for some advice from the
However-
professional?
you know, yes, I would like
Okay.
I would like to hear that.
We can, and when
And
you
it
reach
might be
out
that
to
by
him-
now, most of the candidates that are out there, or most of the town managers have that already, and with that, it becomes a moot point.
Or
But
people that were, started 20 years ago
like, if
before
I have
it
two
was
people,
important.
if I have two people in front of me that have similar qualifications to each other, and one of them has a BA, I would choose the one with the BA.
Okay, so are we okay with asking our professional there what he thinks about the BA versus just that?
Yeah, why
Okay.
not?
Yeah, why not? Exactly. That's a service.
Now, as far as the interim town manager goes, does it matter one way or the other
I don't
for
think
you,
so.
or
Is that right?
no?
So,
Well, you're not gonna
think
say.
what you're saying here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, about going, because then we.
No, no, well, you
They
got-
throw their hat in the ring.
You're
Ah,
saying it's
good point.
okay, we can have somebody without a BA run the town,
We do.
but if we're gonna go hire somebody, they have to have a BA. This is ridiculous.
Going forward. You can always change to improve to go
Okay.
forward, but that's a good point. that-
Anyway, I would like to, you're the point person talking to Clemens?
Yes.
Okay, so can you get to us ASAP what his reasoning is that this candidate needs a BA?
If that's what we
If-
decide.
If that's what he
We
says.
don't even know.
Well,
If-
you look at his resume, and you know he's gonna say it.
If that's what he
No,
says.
no,
Well, he
that
knows
doesn't
these people. He
necessarily
might
mean
know. So,
If, Madam Mayor, if I may make a
Please.
suggestion, since we want to do this as soon as possible, one option, because they're going to want to start advertising as soon as possible. So one thing could be to, for minimum training experience, is to say a bachelor's degree is preferred. And leave it
I
at
see that a lot.
that, and let them start bringing in the candidates. So there's a preference clearly that you want a BA. But this way, it doesn't limit yourself, and this way, they can start sending out the advertisements ASAP.
I think that's a good idea.
And people
Everybody
will
okay with
know.
that? Right?
Yes.
I think that's a good idea.
That's a
And
good
I've seen
language,
that
actually.
actually in,
Yeah, that's good language.
yeah. And, okay, so, anything else that we would like
That's
to
what
say
we
to
pay the big
Tracy
bucks.
to, discuss with Mr. Clayman? Any other
So Ann keeps on holding up dollar bills. So,
Trying to bribe us.
it is a point.
Is that
What,
an ethics thing?
what, like, when this goes out as of right now, what is it gonna describe as salaries, et cetera?
Right. So your current salary, do you want to go with your current salary range that you have set for the town?
What is it?
Because we've moved those around in the last
Yeah, I'll
Didn't
have
we
to-
just
It was in the
discuss
budget,
this
remember?
Yeah,
3
we're
weeks
discussing
ago?
it in the budget, yeah.
And didn't we
one-
come to the conclusion that it was non-sufficient at this point?
Well,
And did we, as a result, have a town manager that just quit her position? I'm just saying.
It's not the money. So, we need to give him, because that's part of
Yeah.
the request right here, is what our budget's going to be, and the question being, do we give him the budget where Tracy is now, that, we brought her up to what people.
or go higher, yeah.
Right,
Well, if we have a range, we could
right,
do Tracy's and then
that's what I
add
think.
whatever we decide to add, but we probably should do that right now.
Yeah,
And
Madam-
you also need to decide whether you're gonna include relocation cost. You don't have to put a number on it, but, I mean,
I would
obviously.
think if we're gonna advertise out of state, you've gotta
Yeah, you
do
have to.
relocation.
Some folks do, some folks don't.
Madam
Well,
Mayor, if I may.
yes, please.
On the salary, what you typically see is a range.
right.
And then you say, based on experience is where you're gonna fall in that range, so you're not pigeonholed to a certain number. So I would suggest putting the range in there that's currently available, and if you want to offer relocation, that would also be part of that package. So a range of salary plus potential relocation expenses. And just leave it as an option, because
Right.
ultimately what's gonna happen is you're gonna be negotiating the terms and conditions of the manager contract. So, whether that includes a lower salary plus relocation expenses or what have you, ultimately that's gonna be part of the package to negotiate.
Okay. Sound good to everybody?
I would leave the relocation thing out of it, because what if I'm relocating from Tampa to here? I'm gonna do expenses for that? I think that would be a negotiation issue when you get the person here in front of you. I think basically just do the range and then based upon experience, be done with it.
And it would be a question,
Yes.
most likely from the candidate, that we could discuss at a later time. if
Yeah,
we
but
found-
I agree with Jeff. You-
Okay.
You
But
put
it's
the
part of the
range out and then you
negotiations.
negotiate, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So-
Again, what is that range?
It's on a piece of paper, but there was in the last budget meeting, remember there's a
Right.
sheet?
Okay, what is it?
Pat,
I can't remember.
Well, we're making this decision, you gotta know what
I
it
think it's
is.
125 to 185 or something like that.
Yeah, it was a big jump.
Yep.
and that,
Which
that was
leaves
the
us
new
with-
range, or that was
That was
the,
the current,
Yeah.
that's current.
that's our
You
current
haven't
range?
passed any proposed.
Right. But that's a,
Yeah.
that's a good
Well,
size
I'm not
range, right?
so sure, I mean, and let's
Yeah,
be,
for
let's be
our
open
town.
about this, I'm not so sure we wanna be trying to attract somebody at 185. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's excessive for the size town that we are at.
A bait and switch?
Yeah.
So what are you comfortable with? 150? And add the word negotiable, based on,
What was
For a
the,
range.
Based on experience.
yeah, that's
do
what
you
I,
have this on the computer, the list that we got, from compatible, Palm Beach County?
no one
So
has.
the-
Yes, Madam
Not on
Mayor, the
this
Palm Beach
page.
Post actually just did a salary article not too long ago. We can probably find that salary
Okay.
article, and it identifies by city, so you can see size, and that'll show you the base salary that the current city managers are receiving.
Right, because we've discussed this.
We
Every
have
time
it.
this comes up, we have discussed this, but we need a range. We're all agreed we want a range, correct?
Well, we need to advertise, and if you wanna
Right.
start advertising tomorrow, then we need to
We
have
need a
a,
range.
yeah,
And I have no problem with leaving out the moving expenses. That's negotiable,
yeah.
correct? So we need, how can we get our range for ASAP?
You said it right now.
I kind of would like to know, oh, you said we were 125 to 185? I think you have a point, though. We don't want to
We
throw
could
out
do
false
125
hopes.
to 150 plus, depending on experience. That leaves us open.
What did you say?
125 to 150 plus, depending on experience.
Let's not bring that up.
Well, what we're trying to do is tell the guy, if he wants to come in here at 155, and he's making 150 where he is.
Yeah, I don't think that if he saw 150, I don't think, and he wanted 155, I don't think that would stop him from applying, because that's part of negotiation. So, 125, 125 to 150, how does that sound?
Aye.
It's actually not, we just looked it up, the
Yeah.
average Palm Beach County is 249.
Right.
Yeah, but that's.
Yeah, but still, that's a, but that's
Point is,
100,000
I know.
over.
50,000 people.
I'm not saying that we
No,
should
no,
be
but
at
still.
250, but
I
Okay.
think 125 to 150 sounds reasonable. Martin, what do you think?
I would probably go as far as 160 if we find a really, really good candidate for it. I'd rather,
Jeff?
I'd rather have somebody that is,
Stick with the 150, but make sure we put on based upon experience.
Yep.
Right.
Because then at that point, we can negotiate
Obviously.
down.
It's a signal.
Christine, what do you think?
I'd like to go lower than 150, but I think consensus is 150.
Okay, so let's go 150. Can we get a consensus on that?
Yes.
Consensus.
Right, because we're low, high, and that's in the middle.
yes.
Tracy? Okay. Yes. Then we need a budget for our acting town manager. How do we figure that one out? We ask Daniel if that becomes a percentage of what you're doing, or,
Don't these
I wouldn't know
people,
where to
doesn't he
begin.
know that?
I'm gonna
Clemens?
guess, but
I'm
we have
assuming
an
the 15 candidates have a money
right, but we
attached
have,
to the
I'm
name.
just saying, because we're gonna get him to start advertising now. That's my question. Do you think that we can rely on the senior advisors to give us a percentage of however they come up with that?
Wouldn't that be the same percent, wouldn't that be same salary though, that between 120 and 150 then?
Yeah, it's $30,000
Based on
difference.
qualification, no?
Do you want to pay a per hour rate while they're in here training? Because I don't think they're going to come in here and train for the full 40 hours a week. Do you want to pay a consulting fee or something in the beginning, and then once I leave, then they start with the full time?
Yeah. That sounds logical.
Okay, so what do you want to do for a per hour consulting fee?
What might be a suggestion from
How many hours will they need?
the finance lady?
How many hours do you think they will need to get acquainted with?
That's going to be up to them.
Yeah.
By the way, when somebody comes in acting or interim, whatever we're calling it, do they also get health care and anything else, or is it just flat salary? Anybody know the answer to that?
Right. No
Okay.
benefits, I believe, as right.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, normally, Madam Mayor, you can do an independent contractor agreement with them. But we'd have to look at it depending on their duties, how much time they're actually spending here.
Right.
And you get a little bit of an issue if you go for, you're starting to talk about, more than, say, 25 hours a week. Then we need to start having a conversation about how we're really gonna treat them. And that's really outside my expertise.
Yeah,
That's a
that-
Laura question, so we would bring her in at that point.
Okay.
But to get the ball rolling, I think, we could talk about a consulting fee for the interim
Right.
at this point.
And my thought is that, again, we're going to take these advisors on. If you reach out like, sorry, tomorrow morning, immediately, and say, we want to get this done, he knows these people. Where does he think we should look? And then you could just shoot us all an email and get a yes or no. Instead of us coming up with something that might not be at all what they're, would be expecting.
I think one of the things would be is to, obviously, up to your decision, would be to just go with what his recommendation
I'm
would
saying.
be.
Right.
Yeah, and so, because Tracy's not gonna wanna be in the position that she's gonna have to poll you and then advise him as to what the poll
I'd be
shows.
willing to do that.
And again, you have a meeting coming up on Monday, so you could bring
Right.
that up again and we'll
True.
discuss it.
I'm willing to go with their recommendations. I have a very good feeling about the group. How about the rest of y'all?
I think we should wait and see exactly what they have to say, because we're gonna be guessing here what.
That's what I said.
town
Yeah,
manager
that's
says.
what I'm saying. We let,
Agreed.
we go to the pros. What do you think? Christine?
So by Monday's meeting, they're gonna come to us, and we'll decide at Monday's meeting, they're gonna come to us with two numbers. They're gonna come to us for the overlap number, let's call it consulting, and then they're gonna come to us with when the full responsibilities are absorbed. So we need two numbers.
Good with that?
Good.
Good with that?
Yes.
All right. Anything else we need to, let them know? Well, you'll be in touch, so, again, Monday we can do that, but the deal is it's a priority. We want to get these guys going. So we're all agreed on that. Ooh, how about that? Okay, then, do we need to discuss anything else with this? Is there something we missed?
No, but, you need to open it up
Yeah,
for
I'm
public
about to.
comment.
I just wanted to make sure, have we covered everything we need to cover? Christie, have we missed anything?
Madam Mayor, maybe we could recap just to make sure everybody's on the
Okay.
same page.
Please.
We talked about hiring an interim candidate, not hiring, but obtaining an interim consultant as soon as possible, no limitation on whether they could ultimately be a candidate or not.
Correct.
The advertisement would be both in-state and out-of-state. There would be a preference listed for a degree. We're gonna get more information on the salary, the range for the ultimate selection and for a consulting fee. And I think that's all I had.
Okay, that's what I got to.
Is there consensus based on those priorities?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Great.
All right, then. All right, then, what we will do is we will open the floor for public comment on this item, please. Come on up, Terry.
It'll take me a while to get there.
That's
Get
okay.
out of that chair. I haven't asked for ADA accommodation with
Uh-oh.
a better chair.
Terry, push the button on the mic.
It
Don't stop.
goes red. There you go.
Like that? Does
Yes.
that work? Hey, this is cool, man. It finally works. One thing that, everybody's working really well together. That's good to see. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned specifically, and I would suggest that it go into the interview package or the whatever information they need, is that somebody, each of you and the town attorney and the applicant or the one that you're going to hire permanently understands the relationship to the town manager and the commission. That they don't have 5 individual bosses, they have a commission that serves the town. And the operational manager functions independently of everything else. That's what it says in the charter. Just read it, simple language. The problem that I think occurs over time is the tension from individual commissioners wanting something done instantly. Now, of course, things come up, like a water pipe breaks and a neighbor calls you, and that sort of thing happens. But I think you're getting the picture of what I'm trying to say, that it would work better
if they understood what the role of each of the governing bodies are. Does that make sense? For instance, the mayor's position is a presiding officer position. It's not in control of the town, even though I know that's developed over time with certain personalities. And I'm not discussing personalities, because we get in big trouble there. But do you understand? They need to know that relationship, and it's clear in the charter.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Zoanne?
Oh, you just
Turn it
turned
back
it
on.
off.
Zoanne Hennigan,
Oop.
91 Island Drive South. I agree with Terry. I think you guys have done a really good job in trying to work together. Just from my HR professional background, I wish I could have been more involved, but as a resident, I realize we really need outside professional help to do this. My only addition to what you guys have agreed to is when you work with this group is maybe get more specific timeline details. Right now, it's still vague. I mean, you're talking about the 4-month window, et cetera. I think you need more specifics, like the exact timeline for the acting person, for the job, reviewing the job description, for when the first marketing advertisement will be out, when you're going to get the first set of resumes, and like for example, at the next meeting on Monday, ensuring that they come and present to you the timeline. And so if Tracy can get them to provide you intermediate deadlines and timelines, I think that's what you need, because I think you guys have a good big picture, and you've got some good details, and you've shared a lot of good ideas. But you need more specifics, is really all I'm saying. So thanks for all your good work.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Morning. Afternoon, sorry.
Afternoon.
Just one little quick comment. Dr. Victor Martell, 46 Harbor Drive South. One thing I completely agree with is this bachelor's thing. I have a doctorate. Does that make me more qualified? Does anybody here have a master's? Does that make you more qualified? The fact that you're becoming exclusionary as opposed to somebody who's got 15, 20 years experience is absolutely, you're going to limit yourself, and especially when you talk about finding somebody that's a qualified candidate, number one. Number two, I think one of the things you're missing, it's just a play on words, but a timeline and a deadline are two different things. Okay? So, for example, Martin, you could say, okay, our deadline is November 15th. We want somebody in by November 15th, or whatever that is, 30 days, 90 days. I think 90 days is actually more reasonable, with a deadline of this. People give timelines, and they tend to stretch them out. Deadlines are fixed. So as far as I'm concerned, I think a better wording for these people is a deadline, so that we can have our interim and then bring in our town manager and say we want a permanent one by the, granted, it can be moved if necessary, but when the business or the company thinks it's something that they have this fixed deadline, they're going to be much more careful and much more, really look out for it, as opposed to something that's kind of like, well, we got a 4-month deadline.
I think Tracy got that point.
Yeah, but I think the bachelor's thing, I like her language as far as preferred, but, and I don't agree that that's the future. In fact, it goes the other way around. Tesla, everybody are hiring people without degrees nowadays, realizing that it became so exclusionary and you were missing out on a lot of people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right then. So I suppose we're finished with this business. Now we can go to open it up. Public comment again on non-agenda items. Is that what we're left with?
Yes.
Any other public comment? All right then. The meeting is adjourned at 12:29. Thank you, everybody.